Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Ultimate Affiliate Marketing. I'm your host, as always. It's Paul Motley here. And today we're going to talk about mindset. So again, this is not really an area of my expertise. So I reached out to a guy who obviously knows this way better than I do. And hopefully you're going to get some value out of it. Everybody, it is Ryan Stanley. Ryan, how are you doing, man?
Excellent, sir. Getting better by the minute. Thank you so much for having me. I was looking forward to it all day long.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's great to connect, obviously, like this, and it's great for the listeners which are out there, because as I mentioned to you just briefly before we came on, these go out every day. So we have like a core of listenership which do actually listen every single day. And, you know, some people say, oh, I listen first thing in the morning. Some people say, I listen in the shower. We won't go there with that one. We know who we're talking about, right? So, so there's a whole bunch of spectrum of people, but getting your message across on podcast is great for a lot of people because it's something that you can fill in the gaps in your day. You know, whether you're traveling, whether you're at the gym, whether you're relaxing, whether you're on your bike, whether you're going for a jog, where you know, pretty much any time. So let's get into this because again, this is not something that I'm hugely efficient at, shall we say. That's probably a better one. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you managed to get into this, and the sort of things that you can give us today as like bits of value to help people along with their journeys.
Awesome. Yeah, happily. So first of all, before I do, I just do want to share some gratitude as well to you for allowing me this place to kind of share my expertise
with
cool, your listeners.
Anytime.
So yeah, man, my name is Ryan Stanley. I am a certified professional coach. I have been since 2009. I spent a lot of my career actually coaching musicians and people in the music industry because prior to that, I was actually working in artist management where I used to manage a bunch of bands. And so what I loved most about managing bands was connecting with people, was empowering others, was helping them to realize that, you know, their thoughts are things and they can
So do you want to drop any names on that one right now, or are you just going to leave it where it is?
We'll just leave it there. You can do some research, you know, do a little bit of some stuff on my website.
Cool.
Yeah. And so I did that for a while, for 5 or 6 years of my career. And then I also was hired as the first ever internal coach for one of the top coach training organizations in the world. So people who train life coaches, executive coaches, health coaches. I coached all their staff. I coached their entry level all the way up to their CEO, just on anything from, you know, how they're showing up professionally, but to the more personal things in their life. Nice. And then, so with that expansion, I was really able to recognize my ability to really work with anybody, not just musicians, but people from all walks of life. And I've since coached doctors, I've coached authors, I coached people in marketing, really anybody who's interested in being the best versions of themselves and kind of recognizes that they have their own blocks, their own fears, their own limiting beliefs, and are willing to do something about it.
Nice, man.
And the only other thing I'll add to that real quick, just as a bit of a bio, I did just publish my first book, which is called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life. And that's been pretty awesome as well.
Oh, we're going to make sure we put the link to that in the show notes, because I always say to people, don't just listen, go in the show notes, because there's always some good stuff there, right? And this has been proven. And, you know, I've had other guests on where I've mentioned it and they've got sales from it because, of course, people are that keyed in and interested in what we're doing. So it is something that I love doing, especially for the guests which have taken the time to come on. Now, I just wanted to look at, as far as like the whole mindset goes, right? An entrepreneur, he has this, do you feel that an entrepreneur has kind of like a spark from the beginning of time, or is it something that is learnt and they can develop it over time?
You know, that is the eternal question. I think it's a great question. I think the truth is, well, and I'm thinking out loud, it's probably both, right? I think certain people have interests and have, actually, I'll dial it back. Working with musicians, I can honestly say that I see entrepreneurialism as a form of art, right? It's actually similar to musicians or painters or sculptors. You know, you start off with just something in your mind and that's it. And you make the time to create it. You make the time an effort to put it out there and to mold it. And you the first one you make probably isn't as good as the second one. The second one you make is not as good as the third, right? You build, some people like it, some people don't, but you are putting this out there to be judged by the world. And so I see it as a form of art. So as I'm thinking about your question, is, you know, some people are artists, some people are born to create in some capacity, that they like doing that. I think it's a similar standpoint. I think where it comes down to like, hey, is it something that's learned? Really the mindset piece is what's most learned, right? That's the thing that takes the practice, because there's going to be in that comparison, there's going to be artists out there who can paint all day long, but they don't necessarily have the mindset to get their artwork into the hands of museums or whatever, art shows, that type of a thing, right? So there is a second piece to it, your ability to kind of go out and walk the talk and to connect with people and to network and put in the longer hours and to not necessarily have somebody holding you accountable. You got to hold yourself accountable. So those are the types of things you kind of have to want, but you also can be learned if you want to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Now, I would say that, I mean, this has been a fact for my journey and a lot of people that I speak to along the way, that the road to success is never overnight. And, you know,
Right.
and there's an awful lot of failures that come before you see anything, whether that be your first sale or your first 10,000 or your first 100,000 or beyond. There's always like so many failures amongst that. And it sounds horrific. And I'm not trying to put anybody off from getting into being an entrepreneur or being a marketer or affiliate marketer or anything like that. But it can be tough at times. I mean, how would you deal with someone that is at that point where they are constantly feeling like they're failing?
Yeah. So, and it's very common. And so you're not bringing it down. I think you can talk to any successful entrepreneur and they will tell you the same thing, right? It's part of the journey. You've got to kind of, failure is feedback, right? If you recognize that failure is feedback and it's not the end, that's the first step. The other step is, and it's very similar, is to recognize, and this goes not just in entrepreneurialism, but really everywhere in life. If you can shift your mindset from one of judgment, like judging the situation is happening to you, to really understanding that life is happening for you.
Yeah.
If you decide to make that a fact in your life, life is happening for me. And that includes the failures. That includes going bankrupt. That includes, you know, all these different things. If at any point on your most stressful day, you recognize and you actually take the time to ask yourself, how could this possibly be happening for me? And then take action from there. That is a pretty powerful trick that I learned a long time ago, because in the grand scheme of things, I don't know, you know, how into quantum physics you are, Paul, but like really our thoughts are things. Our thoughts kind of create, you know, have an effect on matter in the grand scheme of things from a quantum level. And so when you're looking at anything that's happening to you, that's what you're going to get more of. When you say, oh my gosh, this happened to me, that happened to me, life is happening to me, I'm at the effect and I'm struggling and I'm coping the entire time and my business failed and this sucks and that person didn't do what they said they're going to do. It's like you're in this space where you're building up energy that is really not serving you or the purpose that you think that you're set out for.
Yeah. Okay.
As opposed to taking that and saying, okay, so if this happened for me and genuinely, right? So it's actually shifting from judgment to curiosity. You're judging the situation as bad. You're judging it that it happened to you, as opposed to being curious as to how this could be good, or how this could possibly happen for me. And when you're authentically asking yourself those questions, how could this, I mean, it sounds weird, especially in traumatic, and I'm not belittling anybody's experience in life. I've had some pretty serious traumas of my own. And so I want to share that I'm not just going, oh, don't worry, it's all rainbows and unicorns. But all that being said, when you take stressful situations, like what some people might call a failure, and you say, okay, literally, if this happened for me, what would be the reason? And you start coming from that space where you're accessing the right side of your brain to be curious. You start coming up with different reasons why it might have happened for you, and then decide to start taking action based on those thoughts. You are constantly moving forward instead of being stuck in a block of judgment. And the other part about judgment versus curiosity is judgment keeps you in a box, and curiosity leaves nothing but opportunity.
That's awesome, man. And I don't want to stay on the negative. We are going to transfer that onto the positive, because at the end of the day, we don't want people sort of moping around thinking the world's about to end for them.
Well, and real quick, I'll just say the good news is, I mean, if you're listening to that, if you go back and listen to this one again, that actually was good news. That was positive. The positive thing is that life is happening for you. You get to decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah, that's cool. What would you say to somebody that was, obviously they hadn't made it yet, but they were still getting some external pressures that they should, you know, go get a regular job and they should pack it all in and everything else like that?
So first of all, I would say never pack it all in. Just, you know, if there are certain situations where, especially if you're providing for others and if you're not earning the income that is necessary, there's nothing wrong with getting a job if that's where you are in the meantime. It does mean that you're going to put in more hours. You're going to make the time in the evening to work on your side hustle until it's not a side hustle anymore. So I would say never listen to anybody else unless you want exactly what they have in life, right? If your friends or your family, they've had a job for 40 years or whatever, 10 years, and they're in a corporate situation, that's not your thing, and they're telling you that you should do what they're doing, that literally has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with them.
Got it.
So if you're hearing any judgment from anybody else based on your career, take a good look at what their life looks like in all areas. And if you want that, then get more curious with them and ask them why they think that, and what, where you are now could move more to where you want to be in comparison to them. But otherwise, thank them for their time, and start surrounding yourself with people who empower you and support you, and start looking up people online, like on YouTube. There's so much amazing information out there. People who are successful, who have been beat down, have had stresses of being an entrepreneur, that are putting out free content that you can get every day, and surround yourself with that instead.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I remember watching an interview that Dean Graziosi did, and he was talking about this negativity that you can get from other people. And says, well, all you want to do is look at their life and everything around it, like you've just said there, and then think about, if you woke up tomorrow and you were them, would you rather be them or you?
Right. Totally. And actually, just in general, an amazing lesson that I learned years ago, which was, what someone else thinks of me is none of my business. Right? Because once I realized that, and I take it totally out, because it has nothing to do with me, again, having everything to do with them, then I could just focus on who I want to be and what my purpose is. Because their life, literally, they're not living their life for me. They're living their life for them, as they should. And so it's my job to live my life for me and decide who I want to be. Remind myself of that every single day, take action on it every single day, create gratitude for that outcome every single day. It's a discipline, man. Being an entrepreneur, living on purpose, whether it be from a business standpoint or even just a life standpoint, takes discipline. And it's simple, but it's not easy, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And hopefully we're shifting gears to where more people are going to start living more on purpose.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. I'm literally sucking all this in as we speak. Right? Yeah. So this is all good news so far. What this is going slightly a tangent, but almost like a full circle, if you like. But I was just thinking, what would you say to people that are now starting to see successes that they want, or maybe they've got, like 60 to 70% of the journey that they wanted to get? How would you manage them, sort of like, to stop them from turning into arseholes, or just like changing as a person because of the success they've had?
Totally. Right. And so obviously there's the old school rules of always remember where you came from, and, remind yourself of that regularly. I think in general, my rules for life are, I kind of touched on already: decide who you want to be, write it down. And this goes for anybody who's 60, 70% of the way there, right? That doesn't change. You can still decide who you want to be. You can still write it down. You still remind yourself of who you want to be every day. But I think the caveat to that, which makes a difference between an asshole and somebody who's successful, is simultaneously be the light you want to see in the world. Now more than ever, if we can show up on purpose, and there's a difference between competition. And actually, let me dial that back. I believe that as a human race, we've kind of bought into this, what I believe is untrue, this theory that life is about survival of the fittest, and that we need to compete to be better than everybody else in order to be successful. And that is really saying that's the ego saying that I need to be superior and I am better than you. And that's how I know that I exist. And that's how I know that I am of worth and I have a value and I'm worthy. When really, so in nature, when animals, there is survival of the fittest, right? Because they literally will eat you.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of a consequence. Yeah.
Right. Totally. But we are humans. We have a consciousness. We have a self-awareness, or at least the opportunity to seek one. And when we go from, instead of competing and trying to be better than anybody else, to instead be the best version of ourselves, literally, and whether that be in any capacity that we choose, business, life, love, relationships, friendships, health, whatever the best version of ourselves is, if we live to step into that just for the sake of creating the best version of ourselves so that we can enjoy that experience of life. And then also, by doing so, we inspire others to do the same. And along the way, empower others to do the same. If ever, imagine, I know this sounds a little bit like weird, actually, but imagine a world where literally every single human being was not looking to be better than anybody else, but only looking to be the best version of themselves and help others do the same. How would so much be different everywhere?
Man, that is just reminding me so much of the Star Trek universe. because
right? Because there's so many.
If you watch the show and you've seen it a few times, and especially like in the later years with Picard as the captain and all that, they got rid of money, and their purpose in life is to enhance or be the best person they can be and impact on those around us. And I think it is quite a utopic way of thinking, because I don't think human nature is actually going to quite let us get there. But, I mean, it's a great vision to have, right?
Eventually. Well, listen, and that's the thing, when you think about the challenge right there, and I kind of said the same thing, but really, if we now take a step back and detach ourselves from the thought of like, well, I don't think human nature is going to get there, because I was like, it may seem a little weird, same thing. But really, that's because we've decided that it's going to take too much time. But if we remove the concept that it's going to take a certain amount of time for us to be this utopian world, and instead just realize that it's a potential.
Yeah.
Right. So there's limitless potentials in the universe. And if you take time out of it and you just focus on the outcome and you create gratitude for the outcome, then there you are living a life where that's a possibility. You've removed, because of your fear of lack of time, you've removed any concepts that it can't be done. And it doesn't, maybe, who knows, right? Likely not. It won't be in our lifetime. But the grand scheme of things, if you're living your life as if it's a possibility, and you step into every conversation and every person you meet and every business you start, and every time you put yourself in any type of public format, into the place where you are empowering others to be the best versions of themselves, one way or another, even if it's just by doing that yourself, and you live that life, then you can live in the peace of joy, and it can be that way for you.
That's perfect, man. I am, like I said, I'm literally drawing all this thing in. I've never really got that much into mindset, because I always felt like I had so much to do already. But and sometimes it's difficult to actually stop and take a proper look. And you might have heard this phrase before, you might not. I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but sometimes you've got to stand back and let the dog see the rabbit. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's kind of like what you got to do. Take a minute and just look at things.
Not only sometimes, but daily, like literally every single day. You think about, there's so much, when we build up a habit of our life of constantly looking at the past and looking at different things that have happened to us and looking at what's going on, especially if I haven't watched the news in years, but if you decide you wanted to watch any type of media, you're just going to be constantly surrounded by all these things that are happening to you, and fear and anger and stress and worry and all these different things. And if you're not intentionally creating time every day to think about all that you have, and to really recognize that, man, I mean, oxygen, gravity, sunlight, water, it's all here literally every single day, just so that you can exist, just so that I can exist. And when you wake up in the morning and you realize that's a fact, and it is, it's like, what am I doing with it? So this is actually, there is no greater gift than life itself. So here I am, I'm this consciousness, this meat suit running around, right? I've got this consciousness, there's gravity, there's sunlight, there's oxygen, just here for me to do something with it. Am I going to spend my day thinking about how much it sucks? Am I going to spend my day thinking about what someone did to me 3 weeks ago? Am I going to think about what somebody, you know what I mean? Or am I going to create gratitude for life itself, for the moment, and look around and think about how awesome life can be, and then decide who I want to be in this life? Yeah. And decide how I can support others in their journey to do the same.
Oh man, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm so glad I had you on the show. This has been so
Me too.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
Listen, man, just run those things through again, because we are going to put this stuff in the show notes as well. But talk about how people can get hold of you, and obviously, where they can get your book as well. So I want to know more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again. First of all, so my name is Ryan Stanley, and that's RyanStanley. And so you can go to my website, which is ryanstanley.com. If you wanted to get my book, which again is titled Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for the emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life, you can get that on my website. There'll be a button there that says Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. But you can also go to Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold, and there'll be copies on there. If you buy one from my website, I'll send you a signed copy with a little note to you. And depending on my availability, it'll also come with a complimentary coaching session.
Fantastic, man. Well, I have already mentally put myself down for one of those books. That is, I love reading stuff like that. Then when I get the opportunity, I do kind of dive into it. So yeah, that's super awesome, Ryan. I totally appreciate you coming on again. And like I said, guys, listen out for what Ryan's got to say. He sounds like he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he can help a lot of people. So make sure you check those show notes to get everything from Ryan. Ryan, once again, thanks for coming on, man.
Well, you're the best, man. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to connecting again in the future.
Awesome.